guys, Drago2020 here, and today we're going to be talking about the abilities and the hacks of characters in Genshin Impact. So let's just get right into it. Alright, there are a couple of things that I need to talk about, and that is the power source of all vision users. The power source of all vision users are the following. 1. Their will. 2. Their ambition. And 3. Their intelligence. If any one of these things is lacking, the vision user actually starts to see a power decrease compared to other people who they should be on the same level as. I'll explain to you later on why I feel this, but let's talk about some other things. For example, the visions themselves. The type of vision buffs users differently, or should I say the type of element. Pyro and Electro, they both buff power more than any other element. Pyro being the most powerful, and then Electro being not too far behind that. And then in terms of speed, Electro and Animo. Electro is almost a jack of all trades. As I outlined in my speed video, Electro buffs characters more than Animo, but Animo is a lot more balanced in the way that they buff their users. And you're able to rebound from attacks that you launch and receive. It also increases their dexterity, and as we see with Kazuha, he's gotten as good with it to the point where he's able to perceive attacks that are not coming at him straight on, and it's gotten to the point to where Kazuha is able to dodge attacks without even looking at them. We also see with Animo users that they're able to wield other elements by swirling. This does increase the damage that the Animo attack does, because now it has two elements that it's attacking with. And when it comes to intelligence, Hydro and Dendro buffs the character. In my opinion, both Dendro and Hydro buffs intelligence around the same. If you think one buffs one better than the other, I guess that's fine, but both elements Archons have to deal with them dealing with knowledge in some way, shape, or form, whether it is to deal out justice or to just simply go over information and just take in information. Neverland has to do a lot of detective work to decide who's guilty and who isn't. If he doesn't, it will throw off his own judgment. And if that happens, he could reach the wrong verdict. And as we saw with Tartag, reaching the wrong verdict will start to raise questions, right? Even without the Oratress now. As for Nahida, I don't need to explain anything. She is just straight up, outthinking literally everyone. Every time we see her, she's just cognitively above everyone else. It's not even a contest. And finally, the element that buffs defense or the ability to tank the most is Geo. Geo is the strongest element when it comes to buffing another character's defense. As we see with Arataki Ito and Noelle, they scale off of defense. The more defense they have, the more powerful they are. Zhongli, the more HP you have, the more powerful he becomes. He's the Archon of Geo, and I feel like it's safe to say that anyone who's using the power of Geo would be buffed similarly. Before I get started into the next important part of the video, I want to talk about the power source of all vision users. As I detailed before, the power source of all vision users is their willpower, their ambitions, and their intelligence. Let's just say you want to achieve a goal. It could be long-term, short-term, either way, you want to achieve it. Now think, what do you have to do? You have to plan, be motivated, and when things get tough, you have to not quit. I'm not trying to sound like a motivational speaker here. The thing is literally called a vision. If you're poor at planning, or just is not good at working things through, step by step, your effectiveness is going to go down in achieving your goal. If you don't have the willpower, you'll just quit before it actually gets tough, or you might stop short. And if you don't even have a good enough word for word vision for yourself for the future, or even for your current self, you can't achieve your goal because you're just wandering aimlessly. Again, the thing is literally called a vision. Now there's another definition for vision, and it's the one that has to do for sight. As we see for Dendro and Hydro characters, they're able to perceive things differently from the rest of the people. For example, Al-Haytham He's probably the most calculated character I've seen besides Yea Miko. Able to predict people's movements, what they're gonna say, stuff like that. He even outsmarted a system designed to outsmart his own movements. As for someone like Mona, she can literally predict the future, but to a certain extent. She has her limits, but the most important thing for a versus match is that she seems to have her own type of spider sense. So she'll know if something bad is about to happen. For example, that scene with the Wanderer. She didn't have any evidence or any suspicion of the guy whatsoever, yet she immediately assumed that he was a Fatui Harbinger and was correct. This was all gathered in a span of literal seconds, and immediately she cooked up a plan to get out of a bad situation. I have an idea on how Mona's precog works, but first I need to talk about another ability that she has, and that is to place an omen on someone. I looked up the definition of omen out of curiosity. The definition of omen is an event regarded as a portent of good and evil. In Genshin Impact, an omen can be used to buff a character, but with this definition, an omen can be used to perceive danger before it happens. What I'm implying here is that Mona applies this omen to herself to give herself precog. The example where I talked about her discerning that the Wanderer was a Fatui Harbinger, that was something else. Here's what I think happened. Whenever the omen detects something severe, like life-threatening, it activates her divination and tells her exactly what's wrong. This does take time though. As you saw, he got pretty close before Mona started to enact her plan to get everyone out, but it's extremely powerful. Being able to tell that something bad is going to happen and what exactly is going to happen is impressive. I'm just going to say this right now. Mona as a character is completely underrated. The only thing she struggles with is power. I'll detail this in a Mona specific video or in the first versus match for her in the future. Just know that I have a tier named after her in my original tier list video because she's the perfect poster girl for most characters in this tier. Her and Hu Tao. This means that she can set up something that she knows you're going to do in the future and then defeat you. Though this doesn't guarantee victory, she's extremely threatening to deal with. But it might also end up showing that there's nothing that she can do to actually win, which can actually end up being a nerf and cause them to lose because of that. It can happen. Gnosis. These things are like visions but on steroids. Visions just grant the basic needs of a user, like using their elements, creating certain constructs and shields with ease. Gnosis grant users the ability to do things like create the money that is used across the entire continent, create and dispel storms across the globe, access knowledge across the globe from a tree, delete things that are not needed like a computer. By the way, logically this would mean that you'd be able to delete someone from history and the world. The Wanderer nearly did that to himself when he was given access to the tree with the amount of power he had left in the Electro-Gnosis. The difference is he didn't delete himself, he just deleted his history and his ties to the Fatui. The elemental power, along with the Gnosis itself, comes from Celestia and is embedded with the heavenly principles. By the way, these heavenly principles are anything but heavenly. More in a later video. I want to discuss some well above average abilities in Genshin Impact to show how important intelligence is by itself. Most characters of note study different abilities across the region or into that. Some of these abilities include creating mimics and blending into them, very similar to what we see the Raiden Shogun do. Some other abilities we see involve counters, where they take the enemy's attack, then launch it right back at them. The region in which the most counters exist is Liyue with 2, then Sumeru with 1. In fact, Liyue has the most shield characters in Genshin Impact. Mondstadt, Inazuman, and Fontaine do not have any characters that can counter. Why am I mentioning this? The reason why I'm mentioning this is because some abilities are specific to certain regions. While certain abilities are region specific, you're more likely to see one ability in one place than another. And I have to factor that into versus matches to consider if that ability is in their kit because of how strong it is, and I will address if certain characters have it when I do their specific videos or versus matches, and not here. Even though I already mentioned it before, I'm going to mention it again and add an extra layer of complexity. Characters like Yea Miko are able to summon other creatures or entities to fight with her or for her. And in the case of Yea Miko, she is able to use these entities to charge up her burst. These entities seem to rival Yea Miko's lightning bolt in power, meaning that they should scale to her when she's not trying in base, and then when she transforms into her fox form, they should also scale to her when she's not trying then. I say this because in her base form, she's mostly playing around and not trying, and when she transforms, the bolt she launches is also casual. I assume this because of how casual she looks during both periods, when she's in base or transformed. However, these entities use up everything they have to the point where they disappear, and she has to summon new ones afterwards. In her skill description, she states that she's 2 grades higher on the pecking order compared to the other entities, and the pecking order compared to the entities she summons, so this makes sense. By the way, depending on how high on the pecking order this character might be, if she ever does come out or is announced, Amaterasu might be one of the entities she can summon, but it's iffy. I'm not necessarily sure if she can or can't because of what I know about the real life lore about this false deity, but I just know that it's possible. I'm going to bring this up again in a video specific for Yea Miko, so stay tuned for that. Another ability is resonating and drawing power from other entities. With Geo, you can resonate with other constructs that are also Geo to either power up attacks, create a structure that releases a pulse that damages enemies and attacks with you, or strengthen shields as we saw Ningguang do against Osile. Because she was resonating with the Jade Chamber, along with other constructs, this is most likely the most powerful we've seen her. That and when she fights Osile's wife. She became so strong, she seemed to rival the actual turrets that hurt Osile. Delusions. Delusions are as powerful as visions. They seem to be powered the same. With Senora, hers was created to limit her so that she doesn't burn everything in sight. The Crimson Witch form that we see in the Red Shogun's palace, that's her true form. We also see things like Child's Foul Legacy form that only come from delusion users. Stronger delusion users seem to not be affected as much as normal ones, like we saw with Tepe and Diluc's father. That, or theirs was manufactured better, with less drawbacks, intentional or not. That is its own video, and I'll touch on it more there. Next up, we've got characters like Sino and Xiao, who put on a mask to get stronger. Xiao's mask seems to be an adaptus ability, or an ability coming along among other Yaksha, high-ranking adapti, who have now passed. Sino's mask seems to be something he crafted himself, from what I'm not necessarily sure. Because Xiao's mask is an adaptus ability, which is considered divine, you can see that Xiao's mask buffs more than Sino's. As for characters like Yea Miko and Nervalette, they can transform into different animals, and that's their full power. Yai is a yokai, specifically a sky kitsune, and Nervalette is a dragon. Now let's talk about archons and them gaining the authority of an element. This seems to be a serious increase. Nervalette did not even want to try to fight the narwhal without this. I have a theory about A and Makoto's sword, and when she went to go fight the shogun in Makoto's dimension. My theory is that Makoto didn't transfer the authority of Electro to her when she passed. Instead, she potentially transferred it to her when she started resonating with the sword and let go of her past traumas, which means she was as strong as a Gnosis before she got authority of Electro, and now she's much stronger than that, to the point where it's just abysmal. So saying that she's high island level is not accurate as of me recording this. She's now reaching into continental ranges, and that's without the Shadow Lord form, something that all other archons are capable of doing without a Gnosis. All archons are capable of sealing away people and entities with their own methods. For example, Zhongli seems to bury them in the ground and then seal them like he did to Asia, and she has her own method of sealing people. She can create a pocket dimension, place them inside of it, and then just seal it shut to where nobody can get in or out, except for her. Time seems to pass differently while inside these dimensions, meaning if she traps a normal person, all it'll take is a couple minutes for them to succumb to exhaustion. By the way, I have a guesstimate on how big the plane of Euthymia is and Makoto's dimension, and it's as I suspected. It's infinite, and it's the kind that's ever expanding and the endpoint just keeps going on forever. Please do not assume that this applies to her speed or power, only her range. The Shadow Lord form seems to draw a lot of energy to the point where even the shogun, who is not even a living person, and more like an android with limitless stamina, is weakened for a period after activating it. This is probably why Zhongli didn't use it against Asia. Alright guys, that's gonna do it. The next video is gonna be on power, but it's gonna be part 2. So stay tuned for that, and as always, have a wonderful day.